G'day, I'm Nick Clements from York US, and welcome to our podcast, Beyond the Guesstimate, where we explore the concept of cost-informing design. I've been involved in the construction sector since 1993, and pretty much the whole time I've been frustrated by how it works and how inefficient it is. And with this podcast, I like to drill into the broader subject of cost-informing design, so not only the design end of things, costing end, which is obviously what our business does, but the whole business bit that wraps all of those together and delivers projects for clients, so creates, builds houses. Do you know what the Finnish word for machine is? So I was at a seminar on Tuesday with Kone lifts, just learning about lifts, and it sort of made me realise that you look at lifts, they're like a tiny portion of a house or a building, a tiny small area. They're one of 50 or 60 trades that are involved in a project. But having listened to that presentation, the amount of information, detail, research, organisation, coordination, design that goes into this one little aspect just keeps amazing me just how complex our industry is, and how on any particular project there's lots of people like Kone Lifts that know the intimate details about the particular thing that they're doing, and us as a building industry have got to bring all of those things together. By the way, the Finnish word for machine is kone. That's what I learnt. So learning stuff like that is something that I guess technical professionals like us spend a lot of our time doing, is learning about how, in this case, I learned about how lifts are installed. From my point of view, I want to understand what are the main things that drive the cost so we can build it into our system so that whenever we strike lifts, instead of plucking a number out of the air as we used to, we've now got a little bit of structure to coming up with a number for estimating them. So we focus a lot on learning technical skills of what we do, but a lot of us, like me, end up owning our own businesses and running construction businesses, and our training and background often doesn't cover the development of those additional skills that are needed to be able to make a successful business. So businesses start off small. I started off in my downstairs bedroom, and the business slowly grew. I'm a little bit different because I did have a business background. I've been in marketing, worked for corporate, so I had a fair degree of business skill I could bring to it. So as it grew, I felt I had the capability to do a lot of it myself and develop it. But that's a bit unusual in the industry, is mostly it's tradespeople or professionals in those specific disciplines that then have to learn how to create a business and run a business. And the choices you've got are either fumble your way through with the limited knowledge you've got, develop your skills yourself, so look for opportunities to develop and improve in those business areas, or bring in somebody with external skills. So I guess today their business has gone through a similar journey. They've started off small and developed over time, and done a little bit of everything in terms of how they've addressed their business skills. So what we've got today is that general manager of that business. From looking from the outside, it looks like they've had a bit of a plan to develop his skills before bringing him into the business, but they've brought him in as a non-industry specialist, but a business specialist. So I'd like to welcome Trent Simpkin from Arcline Architecture. Hopefully I've read into your background correctly, that there's been a bit of a strategy as to you coming into your business.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I got sent off on a slight sabbatical straight out of school. So yeah, you're dead right.
So first, I guess tell us a little bit about Arcline. So what do you guys do? What does your business look like? What sort of areas do you work in?
Yeah, it's cool. So we're an architectural firm. We are based up in Northland, and bit of background. The old man started it in 1993, so he's a qualified builder, and he got into design and build, and got up to doing about 20 houses a year for the first few years there. And then in 2003, he tells us boys he got sick of chasing plumbers, so he pretty much moved on and went to design only. So that's been the case for the last 23 years, is design only. And my brother joined in 2008. I joined in 2017. And so family architectural business, and we do everything from houses to marae to schools to commercial buildings. We try and avoid renovations and alterations. It's just probably something we've had the pleasure of being able to do since we've had enough new projects, which we keep other people busy with those types of projects. That's pretty much a bit of background on what we do, and we work across the country as well. So.
And you've got branches, and you see head office is Whangarei?
Yeah, so we've got Whangarei and Kaitaia are our two offices. We did have an office in Kirikiri as well. So that there is actually, it's just a satellite office now. It's on a small development project. We've got It's just the old orchard house.
Okay.
And so we use that as a meeting spot for clients in the Kitty and the Bay of Islands. So we meet there and use it as a little hub. But in terms of team, it's Kaitaia and Whangarei.
Right.
Yeah.
So how many in the wider team?
Yeah, there's 8 of us. So not a huge team at all. We do pump through the projects every year though, which is good, and that's everything from a one-off house through to a big retirement village development. We've done quite a bit with Arvida and Metlife Care and some private developers as well. So yeah, not a huge team, but got a bit of horsepower when we need it.
Yeah. So you said you had a bit of a sabbatical. So when you left school, what was it? So I presume your old man didn't tell you to become a builder. So what did you do?
Not straight into building, but no, I was at the end of school, year 13, and I got offered a job at a friend's company, and it's called Ulti Group. They do high-speed doors and dock systems for warehouses and factories and stuff like that. So completely different side of things, but he offered me a job. His daughter was getting married at the end of that year, with which I went straight from exams to work, got 2 weeks training, and then handed the keys to the marketing and logistics departments and said, go do. So
you would have been like 18 or 19?
18, yeah.
18.
So, yeah.
And marketing and logistics are 2 big things for what sounds like a reasonably sizable company.
Correct, yeah. Sizable company doing quite a few projects. So, and they're importing from Italy, America, China, all over the show. Both of them were effectively, I just had to look after both those parts, of which I didn't know a lot about, to be honest.
Yeah, so out of school, you don't get too much logistics or marketing.
No, you don't even know how to send an email usually. So, it was straight in the deep end with that. It was good. They'd just started doing a rebrand, so I finished that off, did the new website, did my best to bring in leads for the sales team pretty much. And that was also presentations to architectural firms as well. So that was a good learning into seeing into the, trying to present projects or products, I should say, to architectural firms. Did a bit of that, and then the logistics, we ended up handing that to another chap, so that it became a full-time job for him, and then I was marketing manager for about 3 years.
So that's really impressive to go into a full marketing management role basically straight from school. You must have been some real challenges learning on the job with what you were doing.
Yeah, totally, and you get handed the keys to the website, the CRM, and you had to do telemarketing, signage, logos, there was all sorts of stuff, and new brochure and everything like that. So there was a bit of winging it, to be honest. And then we actually ended up with an offshore team as well. So I set that up with them helping me out with marketing stuff, which was cool. But yeah, bit of a learning curve, and it probably, as you're alluding to, segued into doing that for 3.5 years, and then the old man said, well, about time you came across to us. So that was always the plan, effectively, is to go back to the family company, Arcline, and so went back across into there.
So how long ago was that? Did you go back in, and what role did you go back in as?
Yeah, 2017 it was, and went back in and pretty much got settled straight into marketing, sales, and then I also got into doing all of the consents, like consenting for projects and sub-consultant management. So master of many. And that pretty much, you get a project coming through, arranging the geotech, the truss design, the topo, the survey, that everyone that needed arranging around the project, arranging that, and then doing the consents and paperwork for RC, BC, etc. So there was that side of it, as well as we also did a new brand, a new website, a new brochure, and all of that at the same time. So there was kind of, let's try and get some of my time as billable, but let's also build up the brand. So it was a bit of a balancing act there,
And so how long ago did you move into the role of general manager?
Good question. Probably 2 or 3 years ago now. To be fair, being a family business, it's not a solid title that you run by the whole time. You kind of have, we're not super title heavy in the business. When you've got your father and brother in there too, you'll just find your spot. But it's good to know where you sit. So
it's not uncommon in the building industry to have family in business. So my wife works for us part-time as well, but it does bring its own set of challenges. So how do you guys navigate through that? Because often the lines between who does what vary a bit. And also with your dad having started the business and like me sort of being the driver of the business, somebody coming in and trying to challenge things or question things can get interesting, like from experience.
Yeah, that's right. And thankfully, Dad, or AKA Alan, has been he's handed the keys over, which is quite good. Let us boys do what we're good at, which is good. It's interesting. One thing we try and do is, I've even got him saved in my phone as Alan, not Dad. Yeah. And then at work you call him Alan, because if you're talking with a client, it's nice just to talk about him as Alan or my brother as Tristan, rather than, you bring in the family thing, and it's quite nice just calling them who they are. And it probably keeps it slightly more commercial. And then the other thing is trying to, and we're not always good at this, but trying to at home just keep the conversation away from work, leave work at work, because then you can have family time without getting... Yeah,
otherwise it becomes 24/7, yeah.
That's right, yeah. And you end up talking about some of the challenges you're having, and it can just stay at work.
And managing the boundaries between sort of who's responsible for what, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, it gets slightly blurry, as you'd expect, but we've probably found our strengths. So Alan looks after a lot of the sketch designs and early client, like actual design work. I look after a lot of the initial conversations with clients when we're trying to get them signed up. So when they're actually literally signing us up to do their project. So I'm effectively bringing in the clients. Alan's doing some of the initial work with them, and then Tristan's effectively practice manager. So he's looking after running all the jobs with the team, and making sure they flow through and, have the right billable hours, etc., all tied in with it. So we've found our spots in the company.
Specializations.
And obviously there's also the thought of Alan being, getting older now, and he's reducing his hours a little bit as well. Yeah. And so we're having to make sure that between us and the rest of the team, we're filling the gaps.
There's a bit of inbuilt succession planning.
Yeah, we don't have it, you might say, 100% locked and loaded, but we're trying.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So what does a typical customer look like for Arcline? Yeah,
it depends. We do quite a range of projects, and I think it's because we come from Northland, there's... whether it be a education project, a marae, a house, a commercial building, we've done a lot of different projects, and so it depends on the client type. But the bulk of the work we do is residential, and so a typical client is generally someone who's often running a business or sold a business, and they bought a piece of land and they're designing their forever home. They're Mr. and Mrs. Jones, and they've got a couple of $1 million to spend on their house, and they walk in the door and say, look, they may have looked at some of the group building companies, and they've said, no, we want something custom. We want something that's for us, and that's where we jump in and design something to suit them, their site, and their budget.
So what sort of marketing channels are you using to attract your clients in? So how do you find them? How do they find out about you? Yeah,
it's interesting. Quite a range. So the bulk of our work still comes from referrals, which is a very common thing in the construction industry.
Yeah, same for us.
And so a lot of referrals. The website we've built up, so we get a lot of incoming leads from that as well, and we just try and keep the social media going, and signage as well, literally physical site signage, signs on the highways. We have people tell us that, mate, see your signs everywhere, which is a good thing because it's physical, it's not, high expense. And I think what you find in our type of industry is they're trusting you with a large amount of money they're spending. And so if they see you, they see your sign, they see you on social media, they see your website, they capture all these little glimpses of you around where they're going, and someone talks about you. And then by the time they actually walk in the door and say, hey, I want to design my house, the sale's mostly made, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's what you want to aim for, definitely.
Yeah. And so you can say, look, just sign here. It's not that easy.
No, it never is. But getting them in the door and getting them talking to you is absolutely the first step. So if you haven't got that, then you got a real problem. So getting to that point is really good. So with the social media, which ones do you use, and do you have a particular preference for which seems more effective in terms of attracting your clients in? Yeah,
to be honest, we don't get a specific one that drives a lot of leads. You can get that. We've done that with paid adverts before on Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram, you can get a lot of leads, but sometimes they're not super quality if they're just people filling in a form just to have a look at something. So we use Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and then we make sure we've kept our profiles live on the likes of Pinterest, House, ArchiPro.
Right.
So we just try and make sure that we're at least on all the platforms we can be on. Yeah. Tried a bit of TikTok and whatnot. Not super, didn't spend a whole lot of time on that. But my thought is, at least if you have a page on every platform, then people can find you, or other pages can mention you, even if you're not super active on it. But for us, we don't specifically get someone walk in the door and say, "Oh, we're using you because we saw you on Facebook." Yeah. It's all of those little touch points that they've seen you. That's what's convinced them to come in. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds very similar for us. So I always, whenever we get a new customer, so we differentiate a little bit. So builders we call customers, and we set them up in our system, and then we deal with a lot of architects and homeowners, and basically we just maintain them on a project by project basis, because typically it's a one-off. But for the builders, I always ask and try and find out, how did they find out about us, and it can be quite difficult sometimes pinning down exactly how they did find out about you. So often it's referrals, but like you say, it's reinforced by all these other things that they might have seen you, somebody recommending you in a Facebook group, or they might have seen the podcast, or seen some promotion somewhere. So it's often the combination of a whole lot of things. I think they say it takes 8 touch points with a client from a marketing perspective to get them engaged. So typically you would have had some 8 different things contacting with them before you're actually talking to them face to face.
Yeah, that's right. And you kind of need to be in those locations for them to be able to actually see you, because I often find it, and nothing against builders and marketing, but you'll go to hunt for a builder in a certain location, there's no website, there's no contact number, there's nothing.
Well, you go to the website and there's no location where they are.
Correct.
And obviously building is a pretty location dependent thing. Like for you and us, we can work across the country without too many issues, but for a builder, they're only going to work within a radius, and if they don't say where they are, you can be wasting time looking for a builder. Yeah,
that's right. And that's, you kind of think it's so easy nowadays. This is not a plug for Squarespace or anything, but there's those website platforms out there that are so easy, and they've now got AI built in them that you just pretty much say who you are, what you do, and it creates a template website. So I'm very pro marketing, as you can see.
And obviously you've learned a lot about it, and you've done well in both what you've done for Arcline and your previous company.
We tried.
We are the same, and I'm probably spending more of my time on marketing over the last little while. I guess with the market being more challenging for all of us in the sector, you can't afford just to sit back and let those leads roll in. You've got to be proactive.
That's right, and a lot of time you often will just expect leads to roll in when the times are quiet, and but it's the work you've done back a bit when the times were busy in your marketing that actually get you the jobs when it's quiet. So even when it's busy, you can't really let your foot off the gas. No. Yeah.
So you work across those 3 locations in Northland, Whangarei, Kerikeri and Kaitaia. Do you notice any difference in the customers or the requirements across those different locations?
Yeah, it depends. To be honest, we work as one team across the locations, so we're not specific offices, if that makes sense. And so we literally might have a project in Thames or Wanganui or Palmerston North, all of which we do at the moment, have projects there, or Wellington. And so we're really just working as one team in that location. Yes, you notice little niche areas, like, for example, Bay of Islands is almost a certain type of people that are shifting there and building. But then even within that, you get quite a mix of, a young couple might be building, or you get an older couple who are retiring. So, it's a mix, yeah.
So what's your process when you get an inquiry into the business? How do you go about dealing with it? So when somebody first touches with you, what happens? Yeah,
to be fair, most of them are phone calls. You get the odd email, but most of the people ring up and they say, look, I've got a project in XYZ. Can we talk? And so I generally look after a lot of that initial clients' calls. So they ring up, I'll have a chat with them, and I go straight to the location, tell me the site address, and then tell me what you're wanting to do, and just try and get them to back their truck up and unload the project onto your desk. And so exactly all about the, where it is, what it is, who they are, what do they do for work. And you just get all of that information. Really my job at that stage is to try and gather as much information as I can about the project, and then package it up so that when they go ahead, I can pass that to the team and say, look, these are who the people are. This is their project. This is their budget. You guys design something. And so I don't do a lot of design myself. I leave that to the team who are really good at it. Yeah. And I go off and try and find the next client.
Yeah. So when you're talking to them, are you typically the only one they're talking to, or are they shopping around? So are they talking to a number of different designers and they're going to make a decision about which one they're going to go with?
Yeah, it depends. Some of them will literally come in and they will be almost self-convinced that we're the right people to use. And that's often the ones that have had referrals from friends or family who have already done a project with us, and they're just like, look, we want to use you. What are the fees? Or they might already know what our fees are, and then they just go ahead. So, and there's others which are probably more the developers or more the housing developments that you do, where the project manager or the developer's definitely shopping around and they tell you that, you're one of three that's pricing this, or and so you also have to try and sell your story and your ability and the fact that we do developments ourselves as well, and try and tell them that, look, we've got this practical experience we can bring to the table, so they're not just looking at the figure, if that makes sense. Yeah.
So on the figure then, how do you go about establishing what the fee is going to be? Because obviously you're much earlier in the process than we are. We basically won't set our fee until we've seen the drawings, because we need to know what we're doing well in terms of the scope, but also the quality of the drawings for us has a big impact. So we're a lot further down the path, whereas you've got nothing more than a discussion and an idea in the air that you've got to try and stick a number around somehow. Yeah,
so from that first phone call, we pretty much decide go, no go. Do we carry on with this client? And it's not being, picky, but we're just depending on the project type. And then as soon as I sometimes just decide on the phone, like, this person's the right fit for us, good client, good project, let's keep rolling. And I'll just discuss our fees there and then. So what we do is we generally say, look, straight out the gate, our fees are around 3 to 5% of your project budget. And that's just open for anyone to see. It's on the website. A lot of architectural firms won't show that. And so we prefer to say, look, 3 to 5%. What are you spending on your project? This will be a rough guide. And then what I do is I say, but we do the first desktop study and site visit as a set fee, sometimes around $3,000-4,000, somewhere around that, depending on where the site visit is. And then we do sketch concepts, or those initial kind of sketchy ideas. That's another step. And those two are kind of set fees to begin with. And then once we've got an idea of what the house is going to be, and it might literally be only pencil sketches, we give them a quote, which is set steps all the way through to issued building consent. And that's not percentage based. Yeah. So that percentage based we give is not how we work our fees.
It's just an indication.
Just an indication, yeah. And then it means that they know what to expect, and they're not going to get a surprise when they get our formal quote saying, here's the steps, here's the fees. Everyone kind of knows how much it's going to be from the get-go. Yeah.
And those steps, presumably it sounds like you've got some methodology behind that working out, because obviously like ours, you're selling hours. So effectively everything resolves down to how much time you're going to put into it and how much of that you're able to get away with billing.
Yes.
So presumably you've got some system for being able to work out what you think the hours are going to be on a particular project.
Correct. So yeah, we use a program called Project Works, which is effectively tracking all our hours, billable time, non-billable time, and it's hours per stage of every project we do. So a lot of our fees, we'll see a project come in and, it's 25 townhouses. Well, what projects have we done similar to that in the last 2 years? Look back on the hours we spent, and effectively work the fees out based on that. And plus you kind of just know if there's new regulations that have come in and things like that you need to allow more time for. So that's what a lot of our fees come back to, is what past projects have taken us. Yeah.
So a couple of things. So how do you go with you tracking your time against those? So how do your results pan out against what you thought it was going to take you versus what it actually takes you? I'd be interested as a fellow professional.
No, that's fair enough. The GP varies because that's effectively what we bring it down to, is gross profit dollars, or per project, and percentages. So you can look at that on every project, and you can literally look down the list and say, well, that project was good, that project not so good. And often it can come back to, did we detail something correctly, or was there a few issues on site that churn away a few more hours than you expected. It's really, we just track it all. Some jobs you do quite well, some jobs not so much.
I guess like all of us, there's going to be some jobs that have issues, but if you priced every potential issue into every job, you'd never get any of them. So there's a degree of a punt that okay, this one's not going to have so many issues for whatever reason, or you've got to, so I know, exactly your pain.
Your pain, yeah, that's good.
It's interesting with we often get asked about set fees for what we do, and I had a bit of a discussion with one of my team about it, and the conclusion we came to, that because a lot of architects do those early stages as set fees, and for us, we just don't know how much time it's going to take. And I think part of the conclusion we came to, which you may be able to confirm for us, is that with the design, there's a fair degree of working through iterations and putting time into refining the design. And so you can set an amount of hours that you're budgeting yourself to do that. And when you hit those hours, you can say, well, that's it. There you go. Whereas for us, when we're estimating our costs, if we're 80% of the way through it, we can't just stop there and say, there you go, we've got to finish it. So in some ways, you guys can set your target and just work to that for those first initial stages. Does that
that resonates. What we often find, though, is that you're best sometimes to go over on those early stages because you know the back end of the project's coming, if that makes sense. Yeah. So you're better to say, let's keep this client moving. Let's spend the hours. Let's do the iterations. And it's actually interesting. A lot of design fees are low at the start and high at the end in terms of all the detailing. Yeah. However, in terms of talent, if you take any architect or architectural designer, the actual real valuable stuff is at the front end. You almost should be charging the most money for the first site visit and first discussions, because that's where all the genius comes out. So I was talking about it with a friend as well recently, and he was saying you really should charge more at the start, not at the end. But you can't, because no one else does, and it would come across and you wouldn't win any projects.
And obviously, I guess from the client's point of view, it front loads the risk for them. So if they decide to pull the pin, they're further into it, cost-wise, whereas, I can understand. But, and then obviously with the documentation side of it is a bit more predictable. You've got a bit better feel of sort of what time's going to be involved in that. So it's sort of easier to stick a number on it in some ways. So.
That's right. And that's why we wait until we've done the basic concept, and then we can give them a set fee right the way through to issue building consent effectively. And so, look, there's the fees. We know what it's going to take us roughly, unless some surprises leap out of the ground at us.
So you've got a little bit of a specialisation in Marae. How did that come about? How did you guys, I guess being in Northland maybe?
Yeah, you did right. So, there's a lot of Marae in Northland. It's a real, even if you look at the Marae maps, it's a real hot spot, and probably if you relate it back to the population as well, it makes complete sense. And being one of the architectural firms in Northland, and there's been government funding over the years for new whare nui, whare kai, whare paku. So you've got these buildings that can be done, and they come to us and they say, look, we've got the trustee, there's 8 of us or however many on the trust, we've got some money, we want to upgrade the marae or put a new building in, and effectively we help them decide on how to spend that money. And it's a challenge because the funding tap gets turned on and off a lot. So some projects can take, one, we did the plans, full working drawings in 2011, and it's just been built now. So, and they just struggled to get that build funding. And whereas others will, they stop and start a lot, and trustees come and go, and so they take a while to navigate the design path.
So it does sound like there's a little bit of a specialisation there.
It is.
Just know the process and the outcomes that they need, and working with the availability of their resources.
Correct. And there's a lot of cultural aspects as well, and going to hui and having sit-downs with all of the stakeholders involved. And it's a real balancing act, because at the end of the day, they've got the budget, which is often funded by a certain entity, and you can't go over that. Even if everyone wants the amazing building, the budget doesn't allow for it, so you've got to really rein it in and keep one hand on the handbrake. We've
done maybe 4 or 5 across Northland. So they've been interesting projects from our end as well, and from what I understand, they've all worked out pretty well. But I get to exactly where you're at. My wife is her marae in Kennedy Bay. There's nice pictures on the wall of what they're thinking about, but they're about 4 or 5 years old, and hopefully trying to pull the funding together. But it's quite they're not cheap.
And what happens as well is the funding pool's only so big, and so by the time they split it by the number of marae and how many people want to build new buildings, it doesn't go far.
So you mentioned you're also involved in property development. So what sort of things are you doing with that?
Yeah, a little, not no claim to fame there. We've got 4 or 5 developments, mostly lifestyle sections. It feeds the Arcline side quite well, because if we can buy a property, create properties, sections and lifestyle blocks, and then we can sometimes we offer free design services for people who buy sections, and that kind of helps us, get a few more projects coming through for Arcline as well. And it's really, really good hands-on, boots on the ground experience, dealing with, civil contractors and drain layers and everyone that goes into concrete layers, everything that goes into a development, and learning what things can completely skittle a development.
Yeah, right.
So it's been good, and with Dad's building experience as well, because he was a qualified builder. This is almost my brother and I's chance to get in and
get some practical stuff
behind us. Yeah.
So it sounds like you're taking small farms and chopping them up, or bigger sections and chopping them up?
It's a mix. So one's a farm, chopping it into a couple of hectare lots, and others residential sections and really small ones, and then another's lifestyle blocks, 2,000 to 3,000 square metres each. So a bit of a mix of them. We've looked at doing townhouse developments and whatnot. Haven't quite pulled the trigger on any of them yet. Every man and his dog's done that in the past.
So there's a bit of a surfeit of them around here in Auckland at the moment.
Correct.
So I don't know what it's like up north. But
it's almost like there's too much of one property type available now.
So because it was at a point quite easy to make the numbers stack up. If you could buy a section and put 6 or 8 on there, it was pretty good to make it look good.
Correct.
Assuming you could sell it. And I guess back when they were doing it, the demand was there to sell it, whereas now you've got lots of choice if you're in that market. So it must be a bit tougher if people are sitting on stock.
Yeah, that's right. It's interesting, and making them stack up is always a challenge. There's the unknowns. You go in thinking that the power might cost 50 grand and it costs 110 or something like that, and all of a sudden that little cost per section on top of all of them adds up. But then the other ways you save as well, things you expected to be the case, and you actually don't have to do it. So it's a balancing act.
So what's it been like navigating the regulatory environment around these? So that seems to be changing quite a bit. There seems to be a lot of discussion around what the Resource Consent Act and what's changing there and what you can and can't do. So over the time you've been doing these, how have things changed, and do you think we're changing for the better?
Yeah, it depends. We haven't actually done a lot in Auckland City Council, which I know I've heard some horror stories, just to be frank, of developments that got approval and then got completely handbraked. And so the ones we've done, you kind of are going into a development with a fair degree of certainty that you're going to be able to do it. You can do agreements where you say subject to resource consent if you're really worried, and so you kind of know before you pull the trigger on doing something that it's actually doable. But there is a lot of changes coming in, and some of them you have to push back on. And as we learn with doing RFIs and things for council, you just have to push back and say, no, we're not doing that, or can we discuss how we can do something different? So yeah, it's a moving target the whole time. You do a due diligence spreadsheet, and in a year's time it looks a bit different when the actuals come through. Yeah.
So what are the biggest challenges with making a development stack up? So when you're looking at one and working out the numbers, where are the bits that worry you the most, and where are the hardest bits to be able to make it work? And I guess how easy is it to make a development stack up?
Yeah, so obviously you've got your purchase price, which is fairly well set. You know roughly what that's going to be. Yes, you can impact it, but that's another story.
Yeah, it's a one-off impact, isn't it?
Yeah. And then you've got your big list of costs, which they can fluctuate a lot. And not only from a regulatory aspect of council saying thou shalt do this and that, but even from yourselves saying, do we want to make it a really nice development, or do we just want to go bare bones and do no fencing and keep it basic? And then you've got the sales. So
I guess the costs ultimately end up at a cost per section, and then you've got a price point that you think you can hit with it, and hopefully the gap between them is enough to make it worth doing.
Correct, yeah, and that gap can change through the project a little bit as well. And often you'll look at it and say, we need to, out of 10 lots, we need to sell 6 or 7 to be able to even turn a profit. And then one of the biggest impacts is interest as well on money. So you put that in there, and it can quite quickly change a development from looking pretty good to looking pretty bad.
Yeah, and that's, again, time, all back to time, isn't it? So if you start getting delays in there, then suddenly what looked like a good development and everything else may be fine, but if there's been some delay for some reason, can turn it to not so good.
Correct, yeah, and not only interest, but you've got hedge trimming, lawn mowing, all your rates, holding costs. There's a lot of holding costs going to it. So, although it's I don't want to focus on it too much. It's a side hustle, you might say, for us, but it feeds the architecture side quite well and gives us great experience. So, it's been eye opening to say the least.
And so you've just been doing it for yourselves. You've not been doing developments for other investors.
No, just for ourselves at this point. Yeah, we do work with developers on the architecture side. Obviously, someone comes along with a townhouse development or some type of generally that's built developments when we're working for them doing the architecture. But we don't really work with anyone just doing land development and whatnot.
Right. So do you build any houses on them yourselves? Do you go that far? Do spec houses or just the land?
Yeah, haven't yet. It is a large discussion point.
Okay.
We've actually, just getting some QSing done on one of them at the moment to put a spec house on there. So you've obviously got this thing where sections aren't selling like hotcakes, but houses are selling better. Yep.
But you've obviously got to tip a whole lot more money in.
Correct.
And also it's now your design and they'll either like it or they don't. So whereas a section's a clean sheet of paper from a design point of view.
That's right. And it's easier for the banks to give lending on a finished house on a section and it's all done rather than giving lending to someone saying, I'm going to go build a house. Yeah. So, it's a discussion point. We haven't got into it fully. Probably if it was in a big boom market, we'd be doing it. Crazy. Yeah. But we'll see.
Yeah, we'll come back to that point. I want to quiz you a little bit about that. So do you have any particular builders that you work with? And if you do, how do you go about deciding who you're going to work with and who you don't want to work with?
Yeah, we how do I put it? We don't have any specific favourites. However, probably looking from the outside in, you could say, oh, this builder does a lot of work for us, but we don't have any, written agreements with anyone. Some builders bring us all their projects, and so therefore we give them projects. It's a bit of a,
and how often, which way around does it typically happen? Is it you having a project and helping the client find a builder, or is it the builder having a client helping them find a designer?
Yeah, it's probably mostly us suggesting builders. However, there's some builders that literally do bring us clients the whole time, which is great. But mostly it's, client walks in the door and they just want to see the plans, which they can then get competitive pricing from 3 builders on. So that's almost the client decision as well. They're like, I want my plans and then I can get pricing. And so they know they're not getting, kid by someone doing it all together. Yeah.
Do you have any sort of criteria that you work through with a builder as to whether you're going to work with them or not? You said with the clients you often make a decision during the phone call as to whether you want to work with them or not. Is it similar for builders?
Yeah, we as a lot of builders, if they're watching this, will know, we meet a lot of them. I like to meet people before I refer them. And that's just, gut feel. You want to meet them, you want to discuss with them, how they work and how big their team is, what type of projects they've done. And then there's other builders we've worked with for years that you don't really meet that much, but you just know they just do good projects for us the whole time. So, it's interesting. And I don't want to bag builders at all. They do a great job. Some of them require a lot of phone calls. And so sometimes we'll get photos. Just this week we've had 3 jobs. We've got photos sent of us and they're all framed up ready for the roof and there's been no questions, which is great. Because that's often the part of the project where you get a lot of questions is up to that roof stage where it's all the steel and the timber and everything going together. It's those ones where we really appreciate if they can just nail a project through without too many questions, then that's great. Yes, some questions have to be asked if things aren't clear on our plans. Yeah.
So looking at, coming back to that question about the market. So my last question on my thing was just a bit of a discussion around your feel. So it's something we get asked a lot because a bit like you, we are sort of across the country, we deal with a lot of builders, a lot of architects. So people are interested in what we're seeing. So I'm interested in what you guys are seeing. You're a step ahead of us in the process typically. So what's your feel for what's going on in the market currently?
Yeah, it's interesting. It'd be hard not to mention AI at this point.
Okay.
So in terms of local market in New Zealand, people are saying green shoots, things are happening. To be fair, I haven't seen a huge amount of that yet. Hopefully it all starts rolling through. There's certain regions that are certainly cranking. You've got Otago and Canterbury as well. They seem to be going very well. Yeah, I don't see a tidal wave of opportunities coming through or projects coming through this year. I think there'll be a gradual increase as the year goes through. But the other thing that I reckon is going to really turn tables on any professional business is AI. And I see it coming for architecture,
right,
and I'm sure others will have as well. But you can kind of see it at the front end of projects. We're using it a lot. For concept ideas and quick renders, like, hey, what about this? What about that? And then editing the photos and images to suit. So kind of gone are the days of long rendering waits and things like that. You can get it so quick now. But I see that flowing through into detailing as well, actually, and even QSing, where it'll, as much as you might say fear it, it'll come where you've got a design and then detailing, who knows, it might get down to a week or two to literally detail a project. I'm talking houses here. Yeah, probably different if it's a big commercial building, where you've got all that past data of our projects we've done, and AI can grab that and put it into details, and it'll still need people to manage that process and help walk people through the process. But I do see it shortening the design time, and even from starting a project through to building consent issued, I see that getting squished up as time goes on with AI. That's my thought anyway.
Yeah. It's obviously a pretty hot topic, and it's still very much unknown. I guess one reservation I've had with the whole AI thing is I was around when BIM first came into the market, and everybody was talking about what BIM wouldn't do for the building industry, and now 20 years later it still hasn't really delivered. So for me, AI is something that's really easy to imagine what it might do. I'm concerned there's a gap between what we're imagining it can do and what it'll actually do. And in the QSing space, it's a challenging space. Like I touched on with the whole lift thing at the beginning. The amount of information, the amount of details, and the impact of those details can have on the cost isn't always that obvious. And whether AI is going to be able to get all those nuances and get it meaningfully accurate, I don't know. It's going to give something that is going to look credible, no question. Whether it's going to be good enough or not, I guess time will tell. We've certainly got a few initiatives that we're working on in that space just to see, like you guys, what can we do with it? What can we use? How can we leverage things? Is it going to replace us? Hope not, but maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Nice.
And even if we can adopt it operationally into our businesses, for starters, with just what's available at the moment, even if it's not replacing our actual work per se, then at least we're on the bandwagon and we're getting going for when it comes in.
We're actually just doing a project now with AUT, with a bunch of students looking at just creating a scope of works out of the drawings and out of the specification. So that's one of the big challenges for us, is if you get the scope wrong, it doesn't matter how good your estimate is, you're 100% wrong on those bits of the scope you've got wrong. And so it's going to be interesting. We've just had a meeting with them this week and went and picked out about 40 projects where we had drawings and specs, and I gave them what we'd manually created, and we're going to give it a crack with AI to see what it comes up with and just see how usable and how meaningful it is. And that potentially will save us some time up front elaborating the scope and ensuring that we, when we do our fee proposal, we normally communicate the scope back to the client to make sure we've understood it correctly. So that all takes a bit of time. If AI can help us do that more quickly and more accurately, then it's great.
Yeah, that's good. Oh, well, let us know you get on.
We've got another one that we're doing around cost as well. So we've got a database of about 4,000 houses that we've estimated, and that's right down to the level of detail we've got is a lot lower, I imagine, than what most other data sources that AI would have available to them. And so the other project we're going to do is look at some data science students saying, what can we do with that? So can we leverage AI to make that information more easily available, particularly early stage, so like you talked about that concept stage, or even before the concept stage. If we can start throwing some semi-meaningful numbers at it at that point, then that helps the whole project start off on a financial basis that hopefully fits with what the client can expect. Whereas often we get it that the costing isn't known until quite a long way down the process, and it's very difficult for you designers to know just what the cost impacts of the choices you're making are. And obviously the sooner you understand that, the better the outcome's going to be for everybody. So that's the other area of work we're looking at.
That's good. I think the ideal is in our drafting programs, whether it be Revit or ArchiCAD or whatever we're using, that there's a cost down the bottom right, and when you add a door, the cost goes up. And when you do a little excavation, the cost goes up. Or if you take away a wall, the cost goes down. So that would be my ideal, is if you could literally have this live software plugged in that you can sit there with clients and say, or should we make it bigger? And so you make it bigger and it goes up, and who knows, it could be tied back into bank lending rates and all sorts of stuff.
So I watch the space, because that's definitely what we're working towards. One of the challenges is there's a lot of detail that we know about as estimators that you don't know about as designers. And then also there's quite a lot of information on the design that it's not on the designs that we need to have. So often excavation isn't modelled. You might have the topography modelled, and you might have the building stuck into the topography, but explicitly saying what's excavated isn't there. We model site fencing, we model scaffolding, so they're all costs that drive it. So are you going to go to the point of modelling all that sort of stuff or not? And so part of what we're working with, and I'm hoping maybe AI will give us a bit of a solution, is the stuff that you do model, we can cost that quite accurately. So things like walls, floors, windows, doors, you're going to be putting in, and we can give good numbers off those. Can we use that to infer all the rest of it, so we can give you, a speedo in the bottom corner with a cost against it without you having to input all of the information that we input? So that's what we're working on.
Oh, well. Look forward to the speedo.
So we'll see whether, again, it's easy to imagine, easy to describe. Getting there? Not so good.
We'll see.
So easy. And with the market, I'm sort of in alignment with you that the general feeling is a bit better. Obviously, with what's happening globally, that may tip things over, and it does feel like a bit of a repeat of 2025 at the moment, because it was a bit the same end of 24, early 25, as people were pretty positive. And then I think the trigger was Trump's tariffs. Then just everybody started sitting on their hands a bit. So 25 turned it into a bit of a meh year. It's just sort of wobbled its way through. I'm hoping 26, the underlying export economy and that sort of thing starts flowing through, and we start seeing it in the construction sector. But it's a bit of an unknown at the moment.
And what people need to realise with their projects is now's the perfect time to build in terms of consultant availability, tradie availability, builder availability. Like, everyone's available to do the project. So now's actually a really good time to build, and everyone will look back and say, I wished I had a built in 2026. So as much as that's a plug for the industry, it's true. Everyone's actually waiting to do work and keen to do it. So it's a good time to build.
It's a bit like what they say with the share market, isn't it? Buy on the rumour and sell on the fact. Here we've got uncertainty. So it's, like you say, it's probably actually quite a good time to do things, because if people can do deals to lock in work now, they'll likely be more flexible than they will be if as things sort of start clarifying and solidifying. So
that's right.
So any other burning issues or things that we haven't talked about that you'd like to raise?
No, I think that's it. We covered it well.
Well, it's been a great discussion. Thanks for coming on, Trent. I really appreciate it. I really learned a lot from you, and really impressed with what you've been able to learn over your career without the traditional university background, a bit like myself. You can certainly get out in the world and learn a lot from doing it. So appreciate you coming on.
That's good.
So thanks everybody for joining in and watching. If you want to work with an architectural practice that has got some really great guys in their team like Trent and his family, and really understand the whole building process, get hands in, get into the mud of the developments, then get in touch with Trent at Arcline. If you want to work with a QS that understands the nth degree of how things are built and really has some good technology and some good tools to help you understand your building costs, then come and talk to us. If you enjoyed today's discussion, then whichever platform you're listening to it on, follow us, and you can click on the links below to subscribe. Thank you.